Do you like making people angry? Cause I do. Now, unlike other formats of Magic the Gathering, Commander features a unique perspective of using politics. Deals are made in order to change the game's balance and give players a certain advantage in an unlikely scenario. Now, my thinking is like this. If I can enable my opponents to attack me whenever I want them to and benefit from it, I can abuse that to get ahead. But how do I do that? My game plan is simple. In the early game, I ramp and try to agitate my opponents as much as possible with early damage. Then in the mid game, I cast my commander and benefit from them attacking me. And in the late game, once I've drawn enough cards, I flood the board with more and more win conditions to close out the game. Oh crap. So I chose the commander Asperia for 3 reasons. The first reason being is that he has evasion. Commander damage is very relevant whenever I'm trying to play in the late game, and if I try to agitate my players with just poking them with 1 to 2 damage, they're probably not going to look at me, especially with a commander that lets me draw a card for every time they attack me. So, commander damage is how I'm really going to be nailing home, like, hey, you gotta punch me in my face to make me stop, because if you don't, I'm gonna keep hitting you until you die. That's pretty gruesome. But the second reason is because of his main ability. Man, how is white and blue ever gonna make someone attack them? Like, how am I ever gonna make this ability trigger? What can I possibly do? The thing about this ability is that it makes players overthink what it does. Essentially, they see it and they're like, man, I don't want to attack him to have him draw cards, so I should probably just use removal or attack with 1 creature. The important thing is, I'm getting a benefit out of that. You see, if they destroy my commander, I can always cast them on a later turn, especially if I'm playing for the late game. But if they still only attack me with 1 creature, I still get to draw a card, therefore I'm digging through my deck. Essentially, I use Asperia as combat damage and to agitate other players into making me draw more cards. Eventually, I'll draw into one of my bigger spells and start taking over the late game through stacks and or really offensive effects. And for the third reason, the most important thing, is that this guy is white and blue. Do I gotta say anything else? So you may be asking, does the deck work? I've got no idea, frankly. I played it a couple times. It did pretty well, except for the fact that my opponents realized they had 1 major weakness. I'm kidding, I'm messing with you. Something the deck does really well is that it has a pretty degenerate playstyle of just staxing out your opponents until the very end of the game. Well, lightly. It's not that bad, actually. I think the biggest part of the video now is just explaining the synergies within the deck and how they interact with the commander. Another montage! Whoa there! Before I start yapping, which I'm about to do a lot of, you should probably check out the deck list in the description, and probably also subscribing to me. Please. Please. The creatures in this deck split up into 4 groups: the essentials, early game stuffs, removal bait, and late game control. Each creature in this deck was chosen for a specific reason to make my opponents angry and used as a viable defense. Cards like All-Run, Duelist of the Mind, Body of Knowledge, and Dream Trawler are all cards that when combined with my commander make it scary to attack me. Firstly, let's talk about the essentials. Every deck needs ramp, removal, and a good defense. Because, well, if you didn't have that, then, you know. Now, I've already talked about the early game of this deck, but I have yet to explain the reasoning for my removal bait pile. Hold on a second, you might be thinking, I thought you already talked about your commander as removal bait. And you'd be correct, that's why this pile is the smallest, you big dummy. I wanted to include more cards that could turn heads much like my commander. In addition to that, I added 3 cards with the secondary reasoning of being my win conditions. Angel of Destiny synergized with my late game Pillow Fort cards. Guys, I promise I'm not bad with English. I read Magic the Gathering cards all the time. Elecutors. Basically, it forces my opponents to attack me every couple turns. And Darksteel Reactor is my game ender if I'm forced into a corner where I can't win with my commander damage, but also can't lose. Now we arrive to the meat of the deck, the late game control. There are 3 categories for my late game pile: the synergy, the stall, and the stack. The synergy pile features a 4th win condition with Atemsis, Dream Trawler, and Wind Reader Sphinx. All these cards synergize with my commander. Firstly, because Atmos lets me win whenever I have a full hand of cards. Dream Trawler can be used as both offense and defense whenever needed. And Wind Reader Sphinx allows me to both draw cards whenever I attack with my commander and whenever an opponent attacks me with a flyer. As for my stall pile, I'll need the 2 cards to ensure that I don't get removed from the game. Palisade Giant at worst lets me survive another turn cycle, and at best allows me to give myself a pseudo-immortality. Arbiter of Null Ridge combos with my Angel of Destiny allows me to prevent myself from being attacked out of the game too early. Well, as for the last pile in this group, I got a little carried away. Firstly, there's Archon of Who's been inventing these names? Basically, he prevents me from being one-shot by a Voltron deck. Angler Turtle and Pursued Whale force my opponents to swing out. This leads me to draw a bunch of cards and force the pot into a group slug setting. And lastly are the two most disgusting, vile, utterly degenerate cards of the deck. There's Stormtide Leviathan, an 8/8 that basically locks up the entire game, and Sarah's Emissary, a 7/7 angel that gives me and my creatures protection from any card type. And you may wonder why I put Stormtide Leviathan in a deck that wants to be targeted, and you'd be correct to question me, even though I don't want you to. But both these cards, when cast, basically solve the game in terms of combat damage. And as for the rest of the deck, it has some pretty cool cards. Just don't pay much mind to them. I mean, stop trying to, no, stop. There's nothing else in this deck that you, ow, ah, dang, ow. So you probably have a good gist of how the deck works already, but something that you probably didn't know is that as an added challenge, I made this entire thing from bulk. God, I could own so many degenerate cards. I actually had a lot of fun playing this deck against my friends. It does pretty well. For $67, it does pretty well for a deck, especially that one that I made entirely out of bulk. Now, if I was building this deck off of Moxfield, I definitely would have made it a lot more vicious. However, I think for whatever I did with it, it does it pretty well. I'm tired. I've been editing for weeks straight now, staying up in my room, just working on this video because, you know, it's been a lot of fun, and especially trying to build a deck like this and playing against my friends has been a lot, you know, from their perspective, it was very brutal. Featuring multiple win conditions, stacks-like effects, and definitely oppressing the entire playgroup, it really just makes people hate you, and that's the entire goal of the deck. Now, if you have any questions, comments, or concerns about the deck, I'm willing to answer them in the comments below. Oh yeah, and I also have one more thing to do. Tolarian Community College Professor, I'm challenging you. If I beat you in a game of Magic the Gathering Commander, you owe me $1,000. And if you beat me in a Commander game, you owe me $1,000. Alright, that's about it. Don't really have much else to say. Yeah.